Well, it's time now to turn to the day's top financial matters. Brian Quinn joins us in studio. And Brian, this week shaping up to be a big one for trade negotiations between the United States and its top Asian trading partners. First up, China.
American and Chinese negotiators will be in London on Monday for a new round of talks aimed at resolving their ongoing trade war. The U.S. delegation led by Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent meeting a Chinese one led by Vice Premier He Fang. Back in May, Washington and Beijing agreed to temporarily reduce the more than 100% tariffs between them. Each side, though, now accusing the other of failing to live up to its side of the bargain. Key to Monday's talks will be rare earth minerals. Those are critical for high-tech and defense applications. China controls the majority of the world's supply. It has severely curtailed exports of them in retaliation for U.S. tariffs. Over the weekend, Beijing said it had approved some applications for rare earth exports without specifying which metals or to which countries. The summit on Monday follows a phone call between Donald Trump and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping last Thursday. Analysts say that call was a good sign, but that it will be a long road to a real resolution. Take a listen here.
What trade deals need is a normal conversation. They need a situation where they sit down and go, all right, folks, this is about the numbers. This is what we need. This is what you need. Let's find a way to kind of get to that point. It can't continue like it has been. This is Alice in Wonderland levels of ridiculousness that we've been going through for the past couple of months.
Meanwhile, Japan hoping for a trade deal with the US ahead of the coming G7 summit.
Indeed, Tokyo's top trade envoy was in Washington over the weekend for talks aimed at eliminating Trump's tariffs on the key U.S. ally. Trump's 24% reciprocal tariffs on Japan are on pause until early July, but the president's 10% global tariffs are still in effect, as are the 50% tariffs on steel and aluminum and 25% tariffs on automobiles. That is a crucial Japanese export sector. Late last month, Trump appeared to approve a $15 billion takeover of U.S. steel by its Japanese rival Nippon Steel. Legal wrangling over the specifics of that takeover are still ongoing, though. Tokyo is hoping for a quick trade deal as U.S. tariffs are already taking a toll. The Japanese economy shrank by 0.2% last quarter. That is a pressing concern for Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who's set to meet with Trump ahead of the G7 summit that is kicking off on Sunday. Here's Japan's trade envoy speaking to reporters on Saturday.
Tariffs on cars, auto parts, steel and aluminium are causing significant daily losses to Japan's economy. We are asking both leaders to take into account the extent to which negotiations between Japan and the United States have progressed, and the timing of the G7 summit is at the top of the minds of those negotiating.
Quick look at the markets, Brian.
Asian indexes on the rise on Monday as investors look ahead to those U.S.-China trade talks. The latest Chinese export data missing expectations as shipments to the U.S. nosedived by some 34% last month. Imports down sharply as well as domestic demand remains troublingly weak there in China. Hong Kong, though, still managing to gain just under 1%. Shanghai up around 0.25%. The Nikkei in Tokyo up nearly 1% despite that contraction in the Japanese economy. The Kospi in Seoul, meanwhile, managing to gain 1.5% as we head towards the closing bell there.
Finally, for this edition of Business, an iconic French landscape that has inspired some of the country's most famous art is under threat from a real estate development.
So near the city of Aix-en-Provence in the south of France lies the mountain of Sainte-Victoire. That was the subject for many landscape paintings by French post-impressionist painter Paul Cezanne. Now the landscape itself could be about to vanish forever with the approval of an urban expansion project, a decision that has sparked anger among locals and art lovers. Luc Schrager and our colleagues at France Télévisions report.
Little's changed about this area to the southwest of Aix-en-Provence since the 19th century, when renowned artist Paul Cezanne produced 52 of his works here. But soon, those paintings could be all that remains of such views, with a massive urban expansion project planned for the years ahead, a disaster for local art lovers.
If we can't see what Cezanne painted here, visitors will only get half the landscape Sainte-Victoire. This place is essential because it's where Cezanne painted. We must conserve the landscape and what Cezanne painted.
Local authorities approved construction last March. Reaction in Aix-en-Provence, Cezanne's own hometown, has been mixed, with residents acknowledging both the area's cultural history and the need to expand in a town where available housing has become an issue, something those same authorities say they've carefully balanced over 15 years of studies.
The
preliminary study carried out by the Cezanne experts from the very outset of the project served as the basis and was taken into account by the architects. We have to be aware of the need to develop the town for its inhabitants and the fact that it can't be turned into a museum.
Construction hasn't yet begun, but at least 4 associations have vowed they'll appeal to higher legal authority, hoping to get approval for the project overturned.
Housing shortage is a real concern here in France, as across the developed world. We'll see what comes of that conservation project.